my name is Naomi Stockman from my local Hypnosis. I'm a hypnotherapist and a nutritionist. And I'm just going to have a chat today around my story and what I do, just to get to know you a little bit better. So back in October last year, I launched my clinic one day a week in Bella Vista, and I was actually just graduating from the TRTP, the Richards Trauma Therapy training course, which meant that I needed to get through 10 clients and be able to demonstrate competency, and that was through a mentorship program. So all my client sessions were recorded and then assessed by the assessors for the course, and it was I felt that course added a lot of value to my already extensive skills in hypnotherapy and nutrition. One of the things that I've found is that when I talk to people, the different things that somebody comes to a hypnotherapist for, or even a nutritionist for, there's always an underlying problem, and a lot of the time that can be from things that have happened years and years ago, and that things that people say, oh, I'm over that, I've had counselling for it doesn't really bother me anymore. But as I go through and I work with people on any issue, maybe weight, maybe anxiety, maybe depression, maybe confidence, maybe relationships, maybe money, it doesn't matter what it is. Sorry about the trucks going past in the background. There's always things that come up when I say, when was the first time you noticed this feeling, or when did this problem start, or there's always something affected by the past, because we are who we are today because of what we've experienced before today. So when we came here, we might have had characteristics of a personality, but we didn't actually know about the world. And I noticed this really clearly with my 1-year-old son. He used to go to the edge of something. It wouldn't matter if it was a 20-story building or the edge of the bed, and he'd just launch himself straight off it. And after he launched himself off a few things, he realised, oh, okay, I don't float and I fall and that hurts. So he now gets to the edge and he cautiously approaches it and reverses back from about 1 metre and lowers himself down. And that's something that he will feel that he always knew. Like some people say, I have a fear of heights. Well, you didn't have a fear of heights when you were born. That's something you learned. And that's the way we all are. And so whether it's your relationship with food or your relationship with money, whether it's feelings of anxiety, whether it's the fact that you're a people pleaser, if you can't say no, whether it's having poor relationships or being in a relationship that's not fulfilling to you, where you're not getting what you need, it's all basically that way. The way that you're experiencing life now is that way because of things that have been programmed into you that your unconscious believes to be true. So if your parents worked a lot and they never had time for you, and that feeling of, I'm not important, that carries through right through your life. And you might find that in your adulthood there'll be situations where you don't have priority, you're not somebody else's priority, and you might have that same feeling that you had as a child. And people don't recognise the connection, because often the stuff that's from our childhood, we're not actually aware what we took away from it. So if your parents divorced when you were 6, all you know consciously is my parents divorced when I was 6, but the unconscious has picked up a whole stack of other meanings, like men leave, or mums don't put their kids first, or a whole stack of stuff that would be specific to each situation. And 2 children can be in the same experience and pick up the same, different learnings from that situation. Those learnings, all those learnings that we pick up, and from the age of 1 to 7, it's absolutely critical, because we form all our wiring about what the world is. And one of the things that really blows my mind is the fact that we all live on the same planet, but we all live in completely different worlds. And I see this so clearly all the time, the contrast between, say, my world that I live in and the world that, say, my oldest son lives in, or my world that I live in, and I can contrast that against, a client's world that they come in. And you feel like saying, come into my world. My world's nice, it's good, there's good people in my world, there's wealth in my world, there's happiness in my world, there's family and support in my world, and those things are available to everybody. It's just I didn't always live in this world, so I am fully aware that the world can feel completely different to what it feels for me now. And that's one of the things that I really love with working with people with hypnosis, is the fact that the whole world can change. And that Richard's trauma process that I spoke about earlier, that the underlying theme of that is changing the unconscious core beliefs, and that brings about amazing change in people. The whole world changes them. They say, I went to work and people were nicer. I noticed that my kids were nicer, my husband was nicer, and that's all coming from when you change those unconscious core beliefs. The things that you perceive around you begin to change. When you change, life changes. When you change, everything around you changes. Your experience of the world changes. And that's why hypnosis is such a passion. And I've done the advanced diploma in nutritional medicine, and I think that's important because I know that depression and anxiety, a lot of it is nutritionally based. Treatment will bring results. I mean, if you take curcumin, black pepper, fish oil, B vitamins, zinc, selenium, magnesium, and a couple of other things, so making sure that you've got sufficient nutrients will increase your well-being, your feelings of well-being, and decrease the anxiety and depression levels. But getting to those unconscious core beliefs and changing the way that you experience the world is probably more powerful even than the nutrient status. So I'll go into my story a little bit further. I grew up, I was raised by my parents. They immigrated from Switzerland. Our family was at the time quite different from the average Australian family. My dad was quite aggressive, and he was not always all that pleasant to be around. There was a lot of stress in our family, and my mum was quite a passive, very gentle kind of person, very quiet, and my father earned all the money. He had all the money, and my mum was a stay-at-home mum, and she scrimped and saved and was kind of giving that message of there's not enough. So I left home at 15, and I left home with a whole set of beliefs around myself and the world which probably weren't all that supportive, and I had quite a rough 7 years, from 15 up till 22, which ended up with me having 2 children before the age of 20, and I was extremely poor. I mean, there were times when we'd have no food, no electricity. I'd just had absolutely nothing, and there was through that relationship, the father of my 2 children, there was exposure to drug addiction and all sorts of other stuff. Not myself, but the issue was there in my world at that time, and I had to change everything about myself, my life, who I was, what I believed in order to change that. I had beliefs around relationships, that people get married and they stay together forever. People have children, they stay together forever. So leaving was really hard, and really it was a hugely traumatic time for me at that time. And one of the things that I found is that Louise Hay had some books, and I started to chant. Every day I'd chant, and at that time I was just chanting about money, because money was something I didn't have. So I wasn't chanting about good relationships or health or family or time or career, or it was just money. I have money, 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 money. And within 5 years I had quite a lot of money. And the thing is that when you focus just on one area of your life, the rest of your life isn't getting any attention. So my health fell apart, my kids fell apart, my everything else in my life fell apart. So I had stacks of money and nothing really else. I was stressed, I was overworked, I was exhausted, and I developed cancer. I had actually married by that time, and my relationship broke down. I ended up in a massive separation. I probably was quite close to having a mental breakdown, to be honest. And that period of my life going through cancer, I remember laying in my hospital bed, and thinking to myself, God, please let me live, and I'll do anything. I'll change my life. I'll do better. It was in the bargaining stage of grieving, I guess. And I remember my daughter, she was 12 at the time, and she came in and spent the day with me in hospital. And at the time, I was going through so much, but I wasn't able to appreciate how much my kids were going through, because all that stuff that I'd gone through with the father of my children and the drug addiction, all the stuff I'd gone through with working and getting money, all the stuff I'd gone through with getting married and getting cancer and divorcing, my kids lived through all of that. So I was too busy focusing on my own experience of the world and thinking, well, they're kids, they can kind of just cope and do as they're told. They're fed, they're looked after. And I didn't appreciate until years later the effect that those experiences had on them. So moving ahead, years ahead, so I ended up really taking control of my life at about age 37 or 38. And at that time I walked away. My husband and I had, after the cancer, reconciled and continued with our empire building. And at age 37, I just put down my tools and walked away from everything. And at that time, I'd had a third child. She was 5. The older kids were now 20 and 18, or 20 and 17. And I walked away from absolutely everything, taking literally nothing with me. And so all that money I'd worked for, I just walked away from it. And I remember feeling for the first time in my life a real sense of joy and freedom. I did things because I wanted to do them. I wasn't pleasing somebody else. I wasn't striving or driving. There was a lot of stress inside me from, having to dissolve companies, dissolve trusts, sell real estate, that kind of thing. All that was very overwhelming. But inside me, I did things like bought a kayak, I travelled overseas, I just took back me. I focused on me, and I remember thinking, I just want to stay single for the rest of my life and just live to enjoy. Well, that didn't happen. So life never gives you, it always throws the curveball when you're least expecting it. So I'm now very happily partnered, and we've now had a baby just 16 months ago. So I've got a beautiful age gap between my oldest and youngest. My oldest is turning 29 in March, and my youngest is 16 months old at the moment. So yes, I've worked out in life that following the rule book, following the norm, once you're off the track, you may as well just stay off the track, and you don't need to please anyone else. So it took me a little bit of time in my current relationship to get past some underlying beliefs around, being too old to have a baby, being, having babies to different people, and just self-judgment and levels of, where you're saying things to yourself that are not supportive. But I really, really can say that hypnosis is a method of reaching the unconscious and just reprogramming your life. You can have, do, and be absolutely anything that you desire just by changing your unconscious. And that's basically the purpose of my story, is that there's no reason to be stuck anywhere in your life, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a job, whether it's with your weight, your health, your financial position, whether it's relationship with kids or friendships or personality, whatever it is that you have in your life that's causing you frustration or feelings of being stuck or disappointment, it can all change. You can change your life to be anything that you'd like it to be. And that's the joy that I get now from working with people using hypnosis. Please, if there's anything I can help you with at all, just reach out and I'd be happy to have a chat. There's always time for you to change whatever's in your life, the same as I have. Talk to you soon. Naomi Stockman from My Local Hypnosis.